Lesson 20, yes and no. So, Michael, in Latin, we don't have words that are exactly like yes and no in English. We have several ways to say that we agree with something or to affirm something that someone else said.
That's right. And it's not that we don't have exact words exactly, but that the ancient Romans and the Latin speakers who came after that just used a broader variety of ways of acknowledging and denying things than we're used to. We use yes and no a lot in English.
And they're very convenient.
That's right. But what are some other ways that we can agree with someone or disagree with them in English? Maybe if I said, do you want to go to the store?
I do want to go to the store.
You see, what we just did there was Bill repeated part of the sentence that I said to affirm, that is, to agree with the question I'd asked him.
And we see that here in Lesson 20. As an example, is Julia in the boat? And you can say in Latin, she is. You can use the word est to say she is.
And I would say this is probably the most common way to agree with somebody in Latin.
And you know from context, because the person just now asked you about Julia, when you say est, everyone knows you're talking about Julia. So even though it's just a one-word sentence, est, the context tells you the meaning. It's clear from the context what it means.
But maybe we should talk a little bit about saying no then for a second.
So the same thing goes for no. You can say non est. Simply just repeat back the verb plus the word non. But we also have other words in Latin. We have words like ita. Ita means something like it is so or it is thus.
Right, and often it's thought of as a shortening of the phrase ita est. It's perfectly clear that we understand that we're agreeing or that it's an affirmation, so we just drop off the est and say ita.
And that happens all the time in languages. People leave out little parts that a native speaker knows that you mean, or a native speaker knows that you intend to include that meaning in your sentence.
Querte.
So oftentimes we just leave out little parts of sentences like, if I'm walking out the door of my house going to the store, I might turn to my wife and say, going to the store. And what I mean is, I am going to the store. But I left out the words I and am. And as native speakers, if I say going to the store, my wife knows exactly what I mean, even though I didn't say the word I or the word am. So we do that all the time in language. We just leave out words. And you'll see that same thing in Latin. So we do have lots of one-word answers we can do, like ita. We can say certe, which means certainly.
Querte.
We can say minime, which means not at all.
Yeah, and this one's really emphatic.
Right, it's kind of a strong answer. And you can also say, as we studied before, you can say nescio, which is extremely useful.
Minime, nescio. Get real emphatic if you want.
Some people say seek, don't they? Like
right.
S-I, it's the word S-I-C, seek.
That's exactly right. Seek is just a synonym for ita. It's another one of these words that means thus.
Right, like it is thus or it is so or something like that.
Exactly. And so if you have any familiarity with Italian or French, which are descendants of the Latin language, we can tell that lots of people in ancient Rome were saying seek, because we can say si for yes in those languages.
Oh, so that's where the word si comes from in probably in Spanish.
Seek est.
So Spanish si comes from seek.
Ita est.
Oh.